right. We are still reading out of, but we only got 2 chapters or letters or however it's worded. The Pope, Chief of White Slavers, High Priest of Intrigue by Jeremiah Crowley. The subject this time is the Pope, Foe of Mankind, Part 9, A Word to the Irish Race. Of Irish birth and blood myself, proud too of it, I desire to add a word for the special benefit of my brethren of that noble race. The papacy has been the constant foe of Ireland. Adrian IV, an Englishman elected to the papacy in the early medieval period, sold Ireland bodily to King Henry II of England on the latter's payment of a heavy Peter's pence contribution with the promise of more to follow. No successor of Adrian ever revoked this infamous betrayal of a heroic Christian people. As late as Pius VII in the beginning of the 19th century, the papacy was willing to sell out. Hush now. The papacy was willing to sell out to the British government the right of appointing bishops to Irish Catholic sees. The loud, energetic, and unanimous protest of the Irish masses, led by the immortal Connell, alone prevented consummation of this iniquitous deed. Rome, not Britain, nor Protestantism, is Ireland's real foe. Leo XIII condemned Parnell and Parnellism just as the most trying time of the Irish people's struggle for ownership of their own soil and for the undeniable right of self-government. The uprising of the Irish race all over the world against Leo's heartless ingratitude and despotism, portending an enormous decline in Peter's pence collections in America, the British Isles, Canada, Australia, and elsewhere, brought the lascivious Leo virtually to his knees before indignant sons of St. Patrick. Now, Ireland and the Irish are worshipped hypocritically in Rome. In proof thereof is the following from the Catholic Telegraph, March 20th, 1913. Green immortal shamrock, much in evidence on Monday in Eternal City, Catholic Press Association. Rome, March 18th. Bunches of Aaron's green immortal shamrock, large and small, were to be seen all over the Eternal City yesterday, the feast of St. Patrick, the Apostle of Ireland. Overflowing congregations attended the services in the Church of the Irish Franciscans, historic St. Isidore. Archbishop Seton pontificated at the High Mass in the morning, and the panegyric of the saint was preached by the Reverend Father Pope, the noted English Domitian. Cardinal Falconio associated at benediction of the Most Blessed Sacrament in the afternoon. In the National Church of St. Patrick in Rome, the sermon was preached by Monsignor Benson and Monsignor Zampini. The papal sacristan was the celebrant of the High Mass. The rector of the Irish Catholic officiated at benediction. The Irish are the backbone of genuine Roman Catholic strength everywhere in the English language. I said that so wrong. Forgive me. Let me go back. The Irish are the backbone of genuine Roman Catholic strength everywhere the English language is spoken. Rome loves them not, but has to conciliate them through motives of fear and through love of gain. St. Patrick was not a Romanist. He founded in Ireland a flourishing, independent, national Christian church, which fell into desuetude only when papal control put it under merciless curse and into abject helplessness. The sons of Aaron have been in all times and everywhere daring, not wind, nor wave, nor cloudy day, not narrow tail, nor darksome wood and dim, not crouching partner, nor ravening lion has ever daunted their advance to brothers' help and to mankind's betterment. Nor shall any papal threat or menace now deter their gallant races onward move towards the obliteration of Romanish tyranny. Hunter exultant and seaman triumph does Bret Harte portray the adventure-loving Irishman. The sky is clouded, the rocks are bare. The spray of the tempest is white in air. The winds are out with the waves at play, and I shall not tempt the sea today. The trail is narrow, the wood is dim. The panther clings to the arching limb. The lion's whelp are abroad at play. I shall not chase. I shall not join the chase today. But the ship sailed safely over the sea, and the hunters came from the chase in glee. And the town that was built upon a rock was swallowed up in the earthquake shock. That was very good. No people are more intensely devoted to intellectual emancipation and educational advancements of the masses than the Irish. They are so not because of, but in spite of priests and bishops. The latter would keep their people ignorant, for the ignorant are invariably superstitious. They held Ireland for centuries in the chains of ignorance, till British Protestant public opinion, of which Irish Protestantism and liberalized Catholicism are no mean proportion, succeeded in the early 19th century in the inauguration of a national school system for Ireland. With savage opposition did the Irish hierarchy and priesthood first meet the system, but it has, in spite of all priestly efforts, won its way to success through hearty popular endorsement. Ireland has been, under its influence, transformed. The country has in large measure ceased to be priest-ridden. To conciliate the bishops and priests of Ireland, the government permitted the latter to become, in Catholic districts, managers of the national schools. The priests had the appointment of teachers in their hands absolutely. To the priests were sent from Dublin checks for the payment of teachers' salaries. The teachers could not, for a time, call their souls their own. Women teachers were, not infrequently, subjected to gross abuses from lascivious priestly school managers. Teachers were compelled to teach catechism to the children, not only in the schools, but in the churches on Sundays. Male teachers had to attend Mass on Sunday and serve the priest at the altar. Anyone failing to do so was certain of dismissal. The teachers, forced at length to combine permanently against priestly tyranny, greed, and lustfulness, did so with the full approval of the commissioners and inspectors of education, for the most part Protestants of independent thought and action, appointed directly by the government. The United Teaching Body of Ireland has finally put the priest in his place. Once a despotic ruler of Ireland's school system, he is now nominal manager only in his own district. The priesthood in certain parts of Canada enjoys today a supremacy over separate parochial schools, almost as despotic as that formerly enjoyed by the priests of Ireland over Irish national schools and teachers. The priesthood of the United States of America, not satisfied with absolute domination over the parochial schools, is striving, by combination almost unholy, with the politicians to acquire control truly forbidding and, in American public opinion, most disastrous over the public school system of this country. The sturdy independence of so enlightened a body as the teachers of Ireland in regard to a tyrannous priesthood is token pleasing indeed of what is in store for the Irish priesthood when Ireland has a home rule government. The priest will then be dealt with there as he has been in France and other Catholic countries, made to attend his own business and keep his hands off the pure maidens of Ireland who devote themselves to the arduous and noble profession of teaching. The Irish teachers had, under priestly rule, to bribe priests for appointment, the position going usually to highest bidder. The teachers were obliged even to furnish the priests' houses. It was a case of bribery at the beginning and bribery throughout the teacher's career. So fragrantly corrupt did this priestly control of Irish schools become that the teachers and people at last revolted. The bishops themselves took alarm, and the priest was driven out of his selfish, lustful place of domination of teachers and schools. Dr. F. W. Merchant, who is one of the leading school authorities of Canada, holding high place in the Department of Education in Toronto, was recently commissioned by the Conservative government to pay an 8-month visit to Europe for the purpose of investigating technical and industrial education in the Old World. From the Toronto Globe, bitterly opposed to the Conservative Party, I quote in part. Discussing his trip, Dr. Merchant said he visited schools in England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Switzerland, and Germany. He classified the schools under 4 headings. 1, ordinary or elementary schools with a certain technical, industrial, or commercial bias. 2, technical high schools, schools that taught those entering industrial life just what the present high school do for those choosing a professional career or are preparing for a university course. 3, trade schools, pure and simple, where there is an attempt to teach a trade along with a certain amount of elementary education. 4, the polytechnic schools, which attempt to meet the individual needs of a host of people along a variety of lines. These schools work principally at night. The Toronto Globe, May 15th, 1913. Here's what Dr. Merchant finds in the Ireland of today. The Irish, said Dr. Merchant, have done more in the last 10 years to organize trade schools in small municipalities than any other people I have visited. Splendid schools have been organized in places of from 2 to 10,000 inhabitants. Internment teachers are engaged. Agricultural training is not separated from technical training. The priesthood, by a determined, enlightened Irish Catholicism, not so strong yet in numbers perhaps, but overwhelmingly powerful in intellect and civic worth, has been compelled to keep hands off Ireland's national school system. The agitation for political deliverance, led so aptly by Charles Stewart Parnell, a noble Irish Protestant, whom the priest drove to a premature grave, gave marked impetus to the movement for Irish liberation from the priestly yoke started in the days of O'Connell. Irishmen, Protestant and Catholic, have in recent years, by patriotic combination for the abolition of landlordism, firm ally of a corrupt priesthood, scored a success more permanent than even did, in like regard, the French Revolution. The Irish national teachers, a noble body of men and women, are organized in solid phalanx, free from priestly dominance, for the upliftment of their race and country. Statistics show that their success against obstacles of appalling magnitude, the priesthood principally, has been magnificent. The Catholic teachers of Ireland feared not to tell the priests to keep off the grass, and to see that the once haughty clerics do keep off the shamrocked soil of a people's educational system, worthy successor of that which, soon after Patrick had established his independent, non-Romanist church in Old Erin, attracted scholars, and it says, I don't know what that word is, FMPILS, I'm not sure, from all over Europe. Come, let the day under a home rule government, when all Ireland's bitterness and dissensions, kept alive for its own evil, selfish purposes by Rome, may disappear. When the grand old land of Patrick and Malachi, of Gratian, Swift, Connolly, and Parnell may sit as an equal at the table of the world's great peoples. No real home rule can Ireland ever enjoy as long as she suffers from the Rome rule. Home rule is coming because Rome rule, thanks to high heaven, is fading away from Ireland forever. In the Washington Post of February 16, 1912, I read, King George and Leland. A measure for the better government of Ireland will be submitted to you. In these simple but pregnant words, George V, King of Great Britain and Ireland and the dominions beyond the seas, announced to his League lords and his faithful commons the intention of his ministers to introduce and pass into law a bill for the restoration to Ireland of her native parliament. One wonders if fate is at last going to be propitious to the aspirations and desires of the great majority of the Irish people. So often in the past has the cup been held to Ireland's lips, and so often rudely dashed away, that the blind goddess of mischance seemed to be pursuing her with unrelenting hate. Generation after generation of patriots who sought freedom in various ways by sword and pen, by speech and agitation, passed away sickened with the cruelty of hope deferred. But the sacred spirit of liberty died not. From sire to son, the care of the cause was handed down. The banner that fell from the dying grasp of an O'Connell or a Butt was taken up by a Duffy or a Parnell and passed along to their successors, still floating bravely to the breeze. In 1782, Gratian won a free Irish parliament and closed his great speech on the occasion with the following magnificent peroration. I found Ireland on her knees. I watched over her with eternal solitude. I have traced her progress from injuries to arms and from arms to liberty. Spirit of Swift, spirit of Molnox, I'm not sure what that is. Your genius has prevailed. Ireland is now a nation. In that new character, I hail her, and bowing to her august presence, I say, Esto perpetua. But 18 years later, when his parliament was wiped out of existence with a hollow mockery, his prophecy seemed to be. Yet scarcely was the parliamentary union with England effected, than attempts began to be made for its repeal. Small and ineffectual at first, these attempts grew in volume and intensity with time until at last one of the great English parties was converted to the idea of home rule for Ireland. Gladstone's two Home Rule bills met an untoward fate. That of 1886 was killed in the Commons by the defection of his own fellows. That of 1893 was smothered in the Lords by an overwhelming vote. But all things come round to him who will but wait. The signs and portents are now favorable. It would really seem at last that in Ireland's case, the wheel has come full circle. There is a safe majority in the Commons, and while the Lords may delay the bill, their power to destroy it has been effectually removed by the amendments to the Constitution adopted last year. Still, there is many a slip. There is a powerful and embittered opposition. Parliamentary time is short and valued accordingly. All is not supposed to be well in the inner circle of the king's ministers. Many an anxious hour will be spent by the promoters and supporters of the bill before it is writ broad and large on the statute book. That it must be so written sooner or later seems now inevitable. God bless the day when George V, successor of the kings who drove papal misrule out of Britain, shall open the first Irish Parliament. That day will be one not alone of civil, but above all of religious emancipation, disenthrallment, and liberation for the Irish race, the beginning of the end of papal-ridden Ireland. Jeremiah J. Crowley. And then I think I'm just going to go ahead in this reading and just complete the book. The next reading is Rome's Last Attempt to Murder Me. And there is a message that's been hidden. I don't know why that's been hidden. That's foolish. All right. Here we go. Oh, the final chapter. The Pope, Chief of White Slavers, High Priest of Intrigue by Jeremiah Crowley. Pope's last attempt to murder me. Surprised perhaps at the title of this book, the reader may have at the outset questioned the author's ability to sustain the work's main proposition. I charge the Pope of Rome with a heinous crime, indeed, a crime continuous and bloodthirsty against God and against humanity at large. A crime that covers centuries in its operation and drenches both hemispheres with blood and cruelty most appalling. The Roman tiger is always and everywhere out for blood of any man questioning the papacy's blasphemous claim of sole ownership of the earth, of purgatory, of hell, and of heaven. The Pope's repeated assertion of dominion, absolute and complete, over human soul, body, mind, and estate. I am now in position to charge the Pope with murder. What his bishops, priests, and sworn knights of Columbus do is done by the chief of white slavers, the high priest of intrigue himself. He is the sovereign, they are his ligmen. The Pope's approved books of theology all agree that to take life in the service of Holy Church or in defense of the Holy Father's supreme lordship over mankind is not only lawful, but laudable. Popery has in Europe written her story in fire and blood from the Danube to the Thames and from the Baltic to the Adriatic. But European public opinion has, ever since the French Revolution, borne her claims with impatient and, in recent years, cast off forever her civil and political mastery in several countries. In no European country today has the papacy the same dominating power in politics that it enjoys in the United States of America. To no European king, emperor, president, or parliament does popery offer dictation like unto that which it deals out in cold blood to American presidents, congresses, governors, and legislatures. No large urban community in Europe does the Pope literally own as he owns New York, metropolitan of all three Americas. Other American cities fall into the same category of Romanish ownership, but the case of New York is so conspicuously typical that it's mentioned here and sufficient to illustrate my argument. Curbed, checked, humiliated, because reduced to impotence in Europe, popery works in America with a shameless abandon and an inhuman greed that refuses cover or excuse. America, she claims as her very own, as if neither Cavalier nor Puritan nor Huguenot had ever wrested the fairest and richest portions of the New World from savagery and darkness. The man in America who dares question this monstrous claim is marked for ruin and for death. He may remind popish apologists of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, none of whom bent knee to the infallible despot of the seven-hilled city, and each of whom benefited mankind more than all the popes from the invention of popery to Pius X himself. He may point to the American Constitution with its immortal guarantees of freedom of conscience, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, and human equality. But Roman apologist shakes Jesuitical head, and by the tongue of its felons et al., why shouts in Bacchanalian fury, to hell with America, to hell with the American flag, when Pope of Rome, Christ Vicar on earth, so demands or commands. The American citizen courageous enough to question popish supremacy over flag, constitution, and country is face to face with death that may be at any time decreed by some secret junta of Romanist henchmen, whether belted knights or purple prelates or bootling bosses acting under advice of some wily Jesuit or selfish hierarch. No Catholic bishop may take possession of his see before swearing that he will make every effort to exasperate heretics and heresy. Extirpate is a very strong word. It means more than mere killing of a man. It signifies the uprooting, the total blotting out of the man, and the thing banned by the oath. The Inquisition of Spain burned its victims and consigned their ashes to the meanest and most repellent of refuge heaps. The Inquisition in America would murder its victims and consign their names to infamy, perpetual and overwhelming. When free American citizens elect a Roman Catholic to a judicial office, they think very naturally that the man so honored will, first of all, seek to execute the laws of the state and nation. Not so, however, may the Romanist judge think. The Pope, through his Jesuitical emissaries and representatives, does the Catholic judge's thinking. The American Catholic magistrate's first duty is to enforce papal decrees and ordinances and to administer all American statutes by the light of Jesuitical interpretation. Rome has 3 cardinals, 14 archbishops, and nearly 100 bishops in the United States of America, headed by a delegate apostolic who is direct representative of the Pope himself. All of these cardinals, archbishops, and bishops are sworn to expurgate heretics and heresy. The more than 15,000 priests have sworn obedience, absolute and unquestioning, to their prelatical masters and despots. The millions of Catholic laity are bound to follow priest and prelate or be refused the sacrament while living and Christian burial when dead. To sum up, the prelate and the priest-led millions of Catholics in the American Republic are leagued together to expurgate and utterly destroy the Baptists, the Methodists, the Disciples, the Presbyterians, and all others outside the Popish pall. And to this work of destruction, they give impetus by assassination of such men as myself. Rome's hands are crimsoned with blood. But neither the torrents of blood that she has already shed, nor the flames of persecution that she has so frequently kindled, have stayed the world's progress to light and liberty. The individual register of Rome's blasphemous claims and pretenses is of small account, indeed, compared with the cause he represents. Paul rejoiced in whippings and scourgings, in imprisonment and in shipwrecks for the faith of Jesus Christ. For the sacred truth, to him confided, he finally gave up life itself. Animated with the spirit of Paul, Luther faced repeated danger and finally, warned by labor and trial for the truth of Christ as against Romanist despotism and idolatry, sank in manhood's rime into a premature grave. Singularly favored, in truth, as any Christian, sought out, as was Luther, for Romanist aggression and persecution. Not to us, Lord, not to us. May I be permitted to cry out with the psalmist, but to thy name give glory. I entered the arena against Rome well knowing the risk I faced, the dangers I incurred, and the murderous assaults I invited. Whether I live or die, the seed I have sown, having already taken firm root and begun to yield rich harvest of conscientious deliverance, shall soon present products an hundredfold greater than any we now dream of. No concealment has Rome made of fixed purpose to remove me from the ranks of living men. No concealment has Rome made of fixed purpose to remove me from the ranks of living men. Warnings frequent have I received by letter and by word of mouth, a bloodthirsty desire to eliminate me from all the activities of life. The letters I have received are in many cases a blood-curdling ferocity. The postal laws forbid, under severest penalty, the misuse of the mails. Yet vile, bloodthirsty Romanist agents are permitted to make free use thereof, to threaten me with violent death. Insulted by postal employees when I go to post offices to deposit my mail, subjected to the most atrocious menaces by letters handled by United States postal officials who seem to have a particular care that every such Inquisition stamped letter duly reaches me, my lot as an American citizen is more trying than that of American citizens in Mexico. My life is in more jeopardy than is that of any American today in Latin America's most lawless section. Bloodthirsty men feel that it is safe to use the nation's mails to threaten murder. Their very next step is usually to apply knife or gun or bludgeon to selected victim. The bloody attack on me at Olween follows logically the herny, brutal, verbal assault on me in Cincinnati's General Post Office. And remember This is what started the book, was that attack at the post office, and bears direct relation to the sanguinary missives which I receive from day to day from popish agents as merciless as those who took the life of Abraham Lincoln or William McKinley. The murderous assault on me at Orem, Iowa, June 12, 1913 is, let me repeat, in exact line with the threats that have for years caught my eye and ear. Familiar with Combs' history of merciless repressiveness from the cruel Dominique, the heartless Torquemada, and the lascivious Louis XIV to present time, I cannot be surprised at any deadly attempt made either on myself or on others engaged in the glorious work of America's emancipation from popish darkness and cruelty. But the government of my country owes me protection. The Olwine murderous assault shows in every one of its details and the preparations evidently made by Romanist principals and agents to take my life. In the formation and generalship of the mob of assassins, in the language and threats, the falseness and the lies of the fomenters and guides of the whole bloodthirsty movement, a carefully studied attempt to remove by lawless, un-American, and unchristian methods a free-spoken opponent of the most gigantic lie that has ever cursed this earth. I was invited by the Guardians of Liberty, an organization of patriotic Americans, to deliver 2 lectures in Olwine. The Guardians had a legal right to invite me. I had an equally legal right to accept the invitation. I did not, as a Romanist apologist of thuggery declare, thrust myself on the people of Olwine. Having received an invitation in proper form to lecture, I wired acceptance. The Guardians then wrote me, "We are delighted at the prospect of you coming. The Opera House will seat about 800. The front doors may be thrown open and large numbers can hear from the street. We are going ahead with the advertising. Father O'Connor has been holding special masses to counteract what is coming." Father Pat's brother, Judge Eugene O'Connor of the Supreme Court, was, of course, early in the play for violent suppression of freedom of speech and assassination, if it could be had, of my humble self. Judge Eugene is, by grace of his brother Pat's influence over the Romanist voters, a political boss in northeast Iowa, a knight of Columbus, and ready doer of all dirty work called for in that section by popish interest. Several days before my arrival in Olwine, young Catholic girls were heard about town saying, "We can kill him and not be hurt." Jean says, "We can kill him," etc., etc. Here it may be remarked that about 15 years ago, Father Pat met in Chicago a tramp relative from Ireland. In other words, the present Judge Eugene, whom he was desirous of clothing decently and bringing to Iowa. Reverend Pat appealed to me for a loan of $50 to enable him to carry out this philanthropic design. Poor as I was at the time, I cheerfully handed over the $50, which Father Pat soon forgot. I was obliged, in order to secure its return, to employ some very plain language of the Pope's present-day representative in Olwine. Father Pat and his knightly brother Jean had recourse, just before my arrival in Iowa, to a characteristic Jesuit trick to keep me from coming. They and their agents induced one Morris Loeb, a Jewish merchant of Olwine, to hawk about a petition among non-Catholics asking that undesirable citizen Crowley be kept out of Olwine. Loeb met on all sides with repulse. He was told by Olwine's patriotic American citizens to go back to his store and leave the keeping of Olwine's peace and good name to people who knew how to preserve both. The Loeb effort to keep me out of Olwine's failing ludicrously, it was then attempted to close the Opera House against the Guardians of Liberty and myself. Mr. G.H. Phillips, owner of the Opera House, a sterling American patriot, refused submission to Romish threat. The Romanists hissed their anger, and the cowardly menace will burn your opera house, to which Philip, a man of means, influence, and independence, replied, "If you burn my opera house, I have money enough to build another." Unable to prevent the meeting, Rome took another tact. The very title of my purpose lecture, Rome's Real Attitude Toward the Public School, called forth its fullest activity all the latent hatred of Father Pat, Judge Jean, and the Knights of Columbus for the most American of all American institutions, the public school. The designs of Rome upon America's public school are very clear to the observant. The papal system first insists on the establishment everywhere it may be done of parochial schools to counteract the poison of American patriotism inoculated by the public school, and to provide means of support for thousands of nuns, slaves in mind and body to the priest, who is in every parish the principal of the parochial school. Not content with its own system of parochial schools, the Roman machine foists Romanist teachers upon the public schools in every city of any size all over the country. May it not be asked, in view of priestly and prelatic hostility to public schools, if many of the Catholic teachers must not be at heart hostile to work, alien to, and even inimical to the spirit of the institution, and therefore unfit to instruct pupils in the American public school. The Romanistic game is to build up nunnery and monkeries by means of parochial school funds, to destroy the public school by employing teachers sworn as Knights of Columbus or members of other orders of Catholic men, or as members of various women's church leagues to obey Holy Church first, last, and all the time. Ready, like priest editor Philon to say, to hell with the flag, when papal interests demand its assignment to hot quarters. Not content with seizing wherever they may on the public schools' teaching equipment, the Romanist leaders try everywhere there is a public library to control its influence for enlightenment. The shelves of the library are, by Romanist agents, filled with trashy, lying popish works and Protestant books of highest literary and historical value cast into the discard. Some of Rome's most willing and most efficient agents in the work of muzzling public school and neutralizing public library are professing Protestants, timid preachers, for instance, greedy ward politicians, and in om genius. The papal grip on public libraries is illustrated forcibly in the case of my work, Romanism, a Menace to the Nations. For instance, the Cincinnati Public Library. 7 or 8 copies of the work were purchased for circulation through the public library here. Yet, when a prominent citizen recently called for the book at the public library, not a copy of it could be found. No sooner had the book been purchased for the library and deposited there than it should have been entered with the name of the author in the index. But neither book nor name of author so appears. One of the library officials, notwithstanding, admitted to the caller in one of his several visits to the library seeking for my book, yes, that book is in the restricted department, and we have had a great many calls for it within the past few weeks. It seems that a great many people want to read the book, and there are requests on file weeks ahead. Do you wish to leave a request? Seeing no prospect of getting the book in that way for several months to come, the gentleman went to the office of the chief librarian. He was turned over to an assistant who finally admitted that the book was not even in the restricted department, but had disappeared altogether from the library. The librarian's assistant, referring to the statement that the book had been placed in the restricted department, finally confessed, yes, that is what we have been instructed to tell the people, but to tell the truth, we do not know what has become of the book. For some reason, it has disappeared from our shelves altogether, and we have no way of tracing it. The visitor thereupon said, do you mean to say that someone has deliberately removed that book from the shelves of the library with a view of stopping its circulation? The reply was, we don't know, but it looks that way. Similar treatment has been in other public libraries throughout the country, accorded my book by agents of the papal system, busy like those of Cincinnati and holding back the light from the people's heart, mind, and conscience. Is the Inquisition dead? Is the Inquisition dead? No. In truth, as such incidents powerfully prove. When it dares destroy books, it will not hesitate to destroy in due course authors of books obnoxious to the system. It makes me really want that book. There are thousands of professing Catholics who believe in a truly American system of public schools, who believe also in free public libraries, free from all sectarian trammels. With these, of course, no man like myself, opposed to the Roman machine as a machine, social, educational, and political, odious in every form of operation, may have any quarrel. I admire the honest Roman Catholic struggling helplessly but hopefully against the machine. To him, I say merely one word: get out of the system. It is irreformable from within. Going to Owine with the best of good intentions for the Catholic people, I had not the remotest intention or purpose of setting denomination against denomination or to incite a Protestant majority to assail a Catholic minority. My motives and purposes were to set forth dispassionately and clearly the merits of America's public school system, to warn my hearers of the dangers threatening it, and to point out, as moderately as it might be, the design of one particular foreign political religious system, un-American and anti-American in its origin, purposes, and activities, to destroy it as soon as completely as possible. The Catholic prelates, priests, and papers are every day denouncing the public schools, lying stately that these schools are godless, immoral, breeders of crime, etc. But no Protestant or public school supporter of any denomination thinks of invoking mob law or assassination to controvert these offensive statements. Rome cannot bear to be discussed in any one of its many unpatriotic and indefensible attitudes to American institutions without flaming into anger and calling for the critic's blood. Feeling that I have a right to so declare anywhere, I declared at Owine my belief in the American public school, my conviction that it is the palladium of our liberties, and our persuasion that with it are identified the future greatness and glory of our nation. Had I not right undeniable to declare at Owine or anyone else that the American people should set themselves like wall of granite against even the shadow of the sectarian interference with the bulwark of their liberties, the public school? Had I not right unquestionable to advise that they should treat as public foe any sect attempting to undermine the public school or seeking to obtain public funds for the support of a rival system of education, whose success means the death of the American public school? Who will deny me the right of saying plainly and inoffensively that I disbelieve in the Roman Catholic parochial school? Catholic prelate, priest, and publicist every day denounce the public school as godless and a menace to sound, clean national life. Have I not equal right to state, as I did at Owine, that the parochial school is, to my mind, a menace to our free institutions, a black shadow on our future greatness and glory? No sooner, however, did I so affirm at Owine that an organized band of disturbers in the Opera House started a season of confusion. Their interruptions, frequent and brutal, were by me met with coolness and firmness, as the press reports very clearly demonstrate. These reports show that I held interested hearers spellbound and succeeded in keeping the opposition at abeyance until the close of the address. It was, however, during my address, made very clear to myself as well as to other observers that trouble had been organized and might assume serious form as soon as the lecture ended. The meeting having closed, friendly greetings were exchanged. The law-abiding element moved towards home, but the organized hoodlums of the papacy refused to think of home till they had immersed hands in the blood of the lecturer. This lawless gang, numbering several hundred men and women, boys and girls, filled the street in the front of the Opera House and lined the sidewalk to the hotel of which I was guest, just 1 block away. With a small party of friends, I took the middle of the street, the sidewalks leading to the hotel being packed with shouting hoodlums, armed with bricks, 2 large stacks of which had been placed at a convenient point to smash Crowley. No sooner had I appeared on the street than the mob grew furious. When the misguided people began to close in, I remonstrated kindly but firmly, telling them not to be led into lawlessness by the advice of Pat and his brother, the judge. The policeman escorting myself and party to the hotel was powerless before several hundred Romanish hyenas. The mob soon lost every semblance of humanity, thirsting for my blood and the blood of public school supporters. The ferocity of that mob is simply indescribable. Women, losing sense of dignity and even decency, cried out, "Kill him, cut out his heart, send a dagger through him," etc. They were like demon-possessed, man. When my party had gotten within a few feet of the hotel, the frantic crowd closed in for a final attack. The yelling and hooting became diabolically furious. My hat was first knocked off, that my head might be easy mark for the assailants' weapons. My bare head was, indeed, conspicuously so, because of my tallness. One notorious tough at one time a Protestant was very properly forsook. No, one notorious tough at one time a Protestant was very properly forsook even the empty profession of Protestant Christianity for the militant Romanism when he decided to devote his life's energy to the high calling of a bartender, struck a fierce blow at my face, blackening one of my eyes. So ferocious and brutal this blow that had I not removed my glasses before leaving the opera house, I were today a blind man. Surrounded in such manner that movement was, for a time, completely prevented, and my friends made powerless to help blows from all sides rained in upon me. Mr. George W. Weaver, the considerate proprietor of the Hotel Mealy, watching the mob from his door, thought that there might be a possibility of my reaching the doorway alive and had the screen door set back. But before I could reach the threshold, I was stricken over the head with an instrument supposed to be a heavy clock weight or something of the sort in the hand of one of the leaders of the mob. Severe as the blow, I kept my feet, getting into the hotel covered with blood. After I was ushered to my room, the Romanish hoodlums, angered beyond measure that their plan of murder had failed, became frantic. They surrounded Mr. Weaver, demanding savagely that I be put out of the hotel, threatening, "If you will not turn him out, we will drag him out." To which Mr. Weaver, true son of Iowa, made noble answer, "If you do it, it will be over my corpse." No sooner had I reached my room in the Hotel Mealy than physicians were summoned. Dr. D.W. Ward, assisted by his father, a prominent physician of another city, after dressing the wound, issued the following professional statement of the injury. Contusion of scalp, lacerated incised wound about 1 inch in length, slightly to left of vortex of skull. Incision extends down to the periosteum. 3 stitches applied to be removed in about 10 days. D.W. Ward, M.D., Oline, Iowa. A little later at Aurora, Missouri, the following professional certificate was issued. Aurora, Missouri, June 19, 1913. This is to certify that I, W.F. Ament, M.D., dressed a scalp wound on the scalp of Jeremiah J. Crowley, June 16, 1913. And on June 19, 1913, I removed from the same 2 stitches, there having been 3 stitches originally, one of which was pulled out. And again, I dressed the same wound. On the first occasion, he, Crowley, was suffering from a blackened eye. The tissues about the eye were much bruised. And June 19, 1913, the eye was still blackened. W.F. Ament, M.D. In the face of these well-attested facts, the Western Catholic, a typical Romanist paper published at Quincy, Illinois, was the hardihood to say, "Now if the flames of fanaticism were fanned to a fury, it was done by the guardians of liberty and their sympathizers and their doughty champion, Crowley, as I proceed to show. In fact, it is now evident to a large percentage of the people of this city that the riot and disorder was avowed purpose." The Western Catholic claims this prized paragraph as the work of a special correspondent at Olwein. Not to be outdone by a papal Oregon, Father Pat O'Connor himself rises to remark, "The arms we use are truth, as taught by the Son of God, justice and right as enumerated by him. These we don't conceal in church basements, but in obedience to our Master. We let them shine before the world, and the prayers that we uttered are the crystallized wisdom of ages." The voice Crowley closes his lectures. You know, I would be afraid that God would strike me dead immediately. Myself personally, I have that kind of fear of God. And they just lie on God like that. That's just crazy. 8 sessions at Nixon Theater attract 30,000 people and aggregate 2 meetings Sunday. The series of lectures delivered by Reverend Dr. Jeremiah J. Crowley, a former Catholic priest at the Nixon Theater, closed yesterday afternoon with 2 monster sessions. People began gathering in 6th Avenue in front of the theater as early as 11 o'clock in the morning, although the doors did not open until 1:30 in the afternoon. Lines were formed from the front and side entrances of the theater, which extended to Grant and Misfield streets. By 1 o'clock, it was estimated 10,000 persons were waiting to enter the theater. The Committee of Arrangements decided finally to hold 2 sessions. The theater was filled to its capacity, with which standing room and the stage is about 3,500. And at 2:15, the first session opened. Reverend Dr. Wallace Tharp of the Central Christian Church, Northside, Attorney R.H. Jackson, Reverend Dr. E.E. Clark, and others made short talks. The audience sang several selections, and Walter Cummings, age 12, played a violin solo. The meetings were for men only. The enthusiasm of his auditors was so great at times that his lecture was interrupted often for several minutes. At 3:45, the first audience was dismissed by the side exits. All the time the first meeting was in session, the waiting lines on the outsides were kept intact. And when the front doors of the theater opened for the second session, more than 2,000 persons swarmed in. Many who had been denied admission to the first meeting had gone away. The second audience, however, although not so large as the first, was just as enthusiastic. At both meetings, he urged voters to support principles and not men at the elections. It is estimated that 30,000 persons in the aggregate attended the 8 lectures delivered by Dr. Crowley in the Nixon Theater. His auditors were not alone from Pittsburgh. They came from Wheeling, Steubenville, Beaver, Butler, Tarentum, and more distant points, a number being from Morgantown, West Virginia. The Pittsburgh Dispatch, Monday, July 28, 1913. America must not be Rome ruled. Its executives, national and state, must not be dominated by foreign-ruled bodies such as the Roman hierarchy and the Knights of Columbus. The one avowed purpose of the latter organization is to transform the United States of America into a papal sapitry. This papal order is busy in self-aggrandizement. In 1 year, it has added 19,326 to its membership and 47 new councils to its jurisdictions. It is now 52 states and 3 territorial jurisdictions with 1,630 subordinate councils. Its activity in politics everywhere is very noticeable. It dictates to all the political leaders, Democrat, Republican, and progressive. Its aim, the Romanization of America, is blessed by Holy Father, promoted by all the Holy Father's hierarchs, and helped on by time-serving politicians, both Catholic and Protestant. The Knights of Columbus and the Roman mischief makers generally would Mexicanize the United States. What the American nation wants is not Romanist anarchy, but the Christian brotherhood of the open Bible and of the loving Redeemer, Jesus Christ. Deeply impressed with these convictions, I addressed August 14th, 1913, the following letter to Governor Clark of Iowa. I need to read that again one more time, that paragraph, because I think I didn't read it right, or I didn't grasp it in my mind. Its activities in politics everywhere is very noticeable. It dictates to all political leaders, Democrat, Republican, and progressive. Its aim, the Romanization of America, is blessed by Holy Father, promoted by all the Holy Father hierarchs, and helped on by time-serving politicians, both Catholic and Protestant. The Knights of Columbus and the Roman mischief makers generally would Mexicanize the United States. What the American nation wants is not Romanist anarchy, but the Christian brotherhood of the open Bible and of the loving Redeemer, Jesus Christ. Okay. Deeply impressed with these convictions, I addressed August 14th, 1913, the following letter to Governor Clark of Iowa. To His Excellency, the Honorable George W. Clark, Governor of Iowa. Sir, you were elected Chief Magistrate of a state holding front rank in the nation for devotion to decency, respect for law, reverence for authority, veneration for the American Constitution, and worship of American citizenship. Iowa has been at all times conspicuous for aversion to lawlessness, repugnance for violence, and antipathy to mob law in every form. Iowa had never risen to its present prominence and prosperity but for these splendid characteristics of genuine American citizenship. The Iowa citizen could, till recently, walk with head erect, both at home and abroad, proudly conscious that lie belonged to a state whose citizenry were, throughout the length and breadth of the foremost nation on earth, known and respected for high ideals of clean individual living, Christian good neighborhood, and true American civic endeavor. A recent outbreak of cowardly violence at Olwine, a city of unvarying good repute, till that unfortunate manifestation of lawlessness planned and prompted by an anarcho foreign church, its priesthood and followers, has, however, cast shadow, profound and repellent, on Iowa's once proud name and stainless fame. Any crime befouling the escutcheon of an American state is offense and signal and unpardonable against the nation itself. Impossible to inflict grievous wound on one member of the body without all the other members thereof suffering from that injury. The higher any state stands in public estimation for rigid enforcement of law and unswerving protection of citizens within its gates, the deeper the injury inflicted on state itself and on nation, especially if the lawless endeavor be either condoned or promoted by lawfully constituted authority. You are, sir, governor of all the people of Iowa. You are an American governor. You are in conscience bound to maintain Iowa's good name, to suffer no stain to affix itself on America's good name. You owe no allegiance whatever to a foreign anti-American church organization whose teachings and practices are diametrically opposed to American organic law and civic standards. Romanism is essentially hostile to Americanism. It is sworn foe of liberty, civil and religious. It places foreign pope above native American president. That pope claims the right to him divinely given to dethrone kings, unseat presidents, annul laws passed by parliaments and congresses. Romanism is anarchical, anti-American, and destructive of civilization itself. Its priestly celibacy, whereby its clergy become deadly menace to womanhood everywhere, its confessional, dire promoter of white slavery, its divorce system, endangering the peace and permanency of thousands of homes, are all active instruments of its war upon civilization, particularly the civilization like that of America and Britain, resting on popular education, the open Bible, and the free ballot. Romanism bases our ignorance, the closed Bible, and the despotism of one man impiously claiming infallibility. You are not, sir, governor of Iowa's Romanist only. You are not governor by the grace of Pope Pius X or Cardinal Mary Del Valle. You are governor by virtue of an enlightened non-Romanist community's free choice at the polls. You had never been governor of Iowa could Rome have prevented your election. You had never been governor of Iowa could Rome have prevented your election. Your election over a knight of Columbus, the papacy had indeed prevented through its well-organized political agencies, had not the menace, peerless organ of American liberty, civil and religious, aroused its 5 million readers to the condition that Romanist machinations were seeking to impose on Iowa. Papalism did not want you, sir, elevated to the governorship of Iowa, for it feared that Iowa would in you have a chief magistrate to hold up the flag, which Romanist priests curse and defame, to maintain Iowa in permanent high place as a law-respecting and law-enforcing state, to repress the sectionalism and promote united civic effort. Amazed then are the tens of thousands of honest, patriotic Iowans who, against Rome's fixed purposes and well-laid plans, voted you into the governorship of their state, to see you stand idly by and suffer the fair name of Iowa to be blotted and be soiled by the Romanist originators and promoters of actors and participants in the Olwine attempt to assassinate me. That foul, inhuman attempt at assassination was a Romanist plot, blessed by hierarchy, fostered by priests, executed by Knights of Columbus and other devoted agents of the papal system of blood and brutality. All Iowa, nay more, all of free America had heartily applauded your assertion of senatorial dignity, your maintenance of Iowa's proud distinction among America's commonwealths. You in the Olwine case, shown the courage befitting a real American governor. What an enduringly noble place in American history have, for example, the fearless war governors of Lincoln's day. What honor upon states and nations have not conferred such governors as Cleveland and Morton of New York, Johnson of Tennessee, Allen of Ohio, McKinley of New Jersey, Hogg of Texas, Johnson of Minnesota. No American chief magistrate may suffer lawlessness to triumph and expect to hand down to family, to state, and to country a name spotless and undefiled. The name of any governor unequal to the discharge of duty, unwilling to defy all lawless elements and organizations, must, on the contrary, go down to history blackened and dishonored. Nor can the state itself, which he misgoverns, escape the censure of the nation at large for having elected a creature so pusillanimous to highest office in its gift. The permanent disgrace of one individual is lamentable enough. The permanent disgrace of a state is truly deplorable. When that disgrace arises from alliance between the governor of the state and a foreign-ruled, anarchic, and murderous church organization, whose merciless hands are stained with the blood of thousands of Waldensian martyrs in Italy, with hosts of inquisitional victims in Spain, and legions of Huguenots in France, time indeed is it for Americans to protest earnestly and emphatically against a governor guilty of such malfeasance and demand his summary impeachment and removal. Whoa, I'll tell you, he's mad. When subordinate officials know that their state is in the hands of a pusillanimous chief magistrate, when they have reason to believe that the chief magistrate is himself in the hands of agents of a foreign despotic church body, they too find it convenient to imitate their governor's timidity and contract profitable alliance with the conscienceless prelacy and priesthood of Rome, always promising to pay with ballots for service rendered their cause by weak-kneed Protestant American officials. The conduct of prosecuting Attorney Hughes and of Sheriff Clark of Fayette County, Iowa, on the occasion of the Olwine outrage shows indubitably that there was collusion between these officials and the agents of Rome's band of assassins in Olwine. A cursory examination of the facts connected with the attempted murder of me at Olwine discloses beyond contradiction that the local officials knew several days before my arrival there that plans were under formation for my assassination, that several hundred men and boys had band together to murder me, that the proposed outrage was talked of publicly on the streets of Olwine, that would-be assassins and their abettors attempting no concealment of their conviction, that Judge Eugene O'Connor, the Romanist brother of the Romanist priest of Olwine, had pledged immunity to those who might take my life. That's crazy. The Sheriff Edward F. Clark, in fact, told me after the riot in my own apartment in the hotel, in the presence of several witnesses, that he knew for several days of the planned and purposed riot, and yet he remained studiously away at his home, 17 miles from Olwine, during all the time of the disturbance. Is it not reasonable, sir, to suppose that the county authorities of Fayette felt safe in contracting alliance, offensive and defensive, with Judge O'Connor and Priest O'Connor, with the Knights of Columbus and their satellites, because some assurance was given that the governor of Iowa would keep hands off in the matter of my proposed murder? Why did they feel safe in neglecting preparations for the suppression of an outbreak, which they well knew was certain to occur? Did they not perhaps consult you as to having troops in readiness for the maintenance of peace and order, and find you unwilling to do your part in protecting life and upholding law? They certainly did act throughout as if aware of definite alliance between yourself and the paper agents, particularly your friends, the Knights of Columbus. Did not the latter promise a safe delivery of the Romanist vote of Iowa to you, sir? Sir, if you and your Fayette County officials delivered Crowley into the hands of the assassins, The Guardians of Liberty are not an organization caring about the votes of their members in breeches pockets, ready for delivery to the highest bidder. The Knights of Columbus, the very priesthood of Rome, profess to deal precisely in that nefarious way with the votes of followers and dupes. Catholics, whether Knights of Columbus or not, are nowhere distinguished for bravery. Their servitude, spiritual and intellectual, imposed by the church, robs men of manfulness. Brave only are Romanists when they feel that in any proposed lawless effort, they have back of them the machinery of law and government. So convinced were people in Olwine of administrative connivance at the proposed murder of me that Catholic schoolgirls went about the streets openly boasting that Judge Eugene would stand by and safeguard anyone undertaking to kill me. Would Judge Eugene O'Connor have dared promise any such protection without first fixing his forces on the executive mansion in Des Moines and at Fayette's, I think it means Fayette's, County Court House? Not till I had at Pittsburgh called the attention of all the American people to Iowa's failure through you and your subordinates to assert the supremacy of the law was anything, insofar as I know, done to bring the Olwine malefactors to justice. I said, sir, before the thousands gathered to hear me at Pittsburgh, if I am murdered in the future, I want the patriotic American people to hold the civil authorities of the state of Iowa, especially the governor, responsible for my murder, for their criminal negligence, so far as I know, in refusing to prosecute to the full extent of the law the members of the mob which attempted to take my life in Olwine on June 12th. And furthermore, if I am murdered in any part of this country, I shall expect the American people to hold the federal authorities, including Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, responsible. I am an American citizen and have a right to demand that the state and federal authorities furnish me protection. The whole nation is aroused at the disgrace you have permitted to be inflicted on Iowa. I am in receipt of protests against the Olwine outrage from all over the Union. Let me cite the following from amongst many. I begin, sir, with your own state. Wow, he was really mad. Resolutions adopted by Fearless Court, Guardians of Liberty, Olwine, Iowa, August 8th, 1913. Whereas Fearless Court number 11 of Olwine, Iowa, extended to the Reverend J.J. Crowley an invitation to deliver 2 lectures in the city of Olwine, Iowa, June 12th and 13th, 1913. And that after filing the first night of the engagement, Mr. Crowley was set upon and cruelly mobbed by a large number of Roman Catholics. And whereas the officials have moved in the matter of prosecuting those engaged in the riot of June 12th, yet we are not satisfied with the progress made looking to punishment of the guilty parties. Therefore, be it resolved that we condemn in the strongest terms the effort made by the enemies of good government to prevent by intimidation and violence the said Reverend J.J. Crowley from delivering his lectures according to arrangement. We brand this assault as an insult to the Constitution of the United States and a menace to the right of free speech. But be it further resolved that we urge the constituted authorities to seek out and prosecute to the fullest extent of the law all who engaged in the above mentioned riot. Resolved that this court is highly pleased with the most able lectures delivered by Mr. Crowley, resulting as they have in the awakening of the Protestants of this and other communities to a sense of the danger that threatens their liberty. We wish to commend him to the patriots everywhere as an example of the highest type of American citizen, fearless in his denunciation of Romanish aggression, logical in his presentation of the principles of good government, and worthy the confidence of all good men. We bespeak for him an attentive hearing in all parts of our beloved country. Signed, C.J. Wigner, V.W. Potter, A.H. Nickel, Committee. That the great state of Illinois is profoundly moved at the Orwellian manifestation of Romanistic lawlessness and official unfitness, the following from the flourishing city of Elgin demonstrates. Copy of resolutions, Elgin 111, June 18th, 1913. Mr. Jeremiah J. Crowley, Cincinnati, Ohio. Dear Sir, Elgin Court, number 21, Guardians of Liberty, in regular meeting, June 17th, 1913, instructed its committee on resolutions to extend to you our sympathy in the recent attack made upon you in Olwine, Iowa, by Romanist thugs. Further, that we protest against such unwarranted attacks as opposed to the principles of free speech in this country. Respectfully yours, signed, Henny Shelgove, George D. Bull, Committee on Resolutions. Ohio, the state of my residence, one of the leading commonwealths of this great nation, is not less profoundly affected than Illinois. See what Cincinnati declares. Copy of resolutions. Cincinnati, Ohio, July 1st, 1913. Reverend Jeremiah J. Crowley, Cincinnati, Ohio. Dear Sir and Brother, we, your fellow citizens and members of the several courts of Guardians of Liberty in regular meetings, instructed our Committee on Resolutions to extend to you our earnest sympathy in the recent attack made upon you in Olwine, Iowa, by Romanist thugs, and assure you of our confidence and support as a leader in this grand patriotic crusade. Further, that we vigorously protest against such unwarranted attacks as opposed to the principles of free speech in this country. That a copy of these resolutions be sent to the Honorable George W. Clark, Governor of Iowa, the Menace, Aurora, Missouri, the American Citizen, East Orange, New Jersey, and that a copy be spread on the minutes of the several courts. Menace Court, number 16, WW by BMG. Union Court, number 8, Edward Schmidt, MG. Armory Court, number 23, William Schroeder, MG. Harmony Court, number 11, Finley Stewart. Armory Court, number 23, J.C. Bellman, MG. Lincoln Court, number 20, C. Owens. Anthony Wayne Court, number 12, I think that's Chase Solger, MG. Fairmont Court, number 31, Frank Thiel, MG. Eureka Court, number 4, Chase Ginsburg, Geisenberg, MG. You cannot, sir, plead ignorance of the real conditions at Olwine induced by the disgraceful riot of June 12, 1913. The Menace, the paper which helped so materially to elect you, a paper having a reading continuancy of 5 millions, has thousands of subscribers in Iowa, many hundreds of whom reside in Des Moines, your own present place of residence. The Menace of June 13th, 1913 published the following, which could not have escaped your eye. Extra by telegraph to the Menace Extra. Olwine, Iowa, June 13th, 1913. The Menace, Aurora, Missouri. Jeremiah J. Crowley of Cincinnati spoke here last evening to packed house of leading citizens on the public school question and was mobbed by Roman Catholics on his way to the hotel after the lecture. Doctors state the injuries were severe, but characteristic of his usual nerve and courage. Mr. Crowley will speak this evening as previously arranged. Fearless Court, number 11, Guardians of Liberty. The above telegraph was received just as the Menace went to press with this edition. We hope to be able to give details this week. This assault upon free speech is doubtless part of the national conspiracy against free institutions by the Roman Catholic hierarchy. The threat of the Catholic Federated Societies of Philadelphia is answered by this papal mob in Iowa. We meet the challenge of brutal Rome and declare with renewed emphasis that the sacrifice upon the altar of liberty is not in vain, and this nation must and shall be free. A distinguished and cultured lady visiting in Olwine wrote you, sir, and the Attorney General without delay. Olwine, Iowa, June 23rd, 1913. To His Excellency Governor Clark and Honorable George Casson, Attorney General, State of Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. Sirs, a great crime against the people of the state of Iowa and against the Constitution of the United States was committed in Olwine, Iowa on the evening of June 12th when an attempt was made to murder at the entrance to the Mealy Hotel one Reverend Jeremiah J. Crowley, a resident of Cincinnati, who, exercising his rights as an American citizen, gave a patriotic lecture on the value of the public school. After the lecture was over, he was attacked by a gang of Roman Catholic ruffians who attempted to murder him. One hoodlum, in particular, by the name of Edward Murray of 18 Frederick Street, Olwine, struck the Reverend Crowley over the head with a heavy iron instrument, inflicting a serious injury. The names of the other thugs are known also. As the local authorities seem unable to bring the criminals to justice, will you not use your good offices in the interest of law and order and see that this matter is probed by properly constituted authority and the guilty parties punished? Signed, yours truly, Mrs. Elizabeth Armstrong. A leading minister of the gospel wrote, Guthrie Center, Iowa, June 27, 1913, to the Honorable George W. Clark, Governor of Iowa. My dear sir, I greet you this morning on the 27th day of June, 1913, as first of all a patriotic American citizen of the United States of America and of the state of Iowa, and as a regularly ordained minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, our Lord, King of kings and Lord of lords. I assure you, honored sir, that it is not with a trivial or inconsiderable feeling that I would dare to address you, one whose time and energy is supposed to be employed with matters of the deepest concern and well-being of our beloved state and people. But on the contrary, I believe and feel that what I am to say in this message to you is of very vital and profound interest. I feel that you would be in every case regard as perilous and alarming every concerted attempt at the threatening of our state and national liberties, and believing steadfastly in your unswerving attitude toward any and all such encroachments, I would, as a citizen, remonstrate and give you an account of my feelings in this respect and call to your attention, if it has not already been, and even if it has, would add these words citing you to the mob violence resorted to by a bloodthirsty gang of Roman Catholics upon an honored citizen of this republic at Olwine, Iowa. Thursday evening, June 12, 1913. The Reverend Jeremiah J. Crowley, author, lecturer, and public servant of liberty and freedom of speech, press, and educative institutions. This honored citizen and son of liberty was maltreated and cruelly beaten for maintaining our liberties in this beloved state. And as an honest, sympathetic servant of the public good, I ask you immediately investigate this matter, and as a wise judiciary cause to be made such arrest and conviction of said participants in this bold and unpatriotic and inhumane assault. For I feel that this should be dealt strenuously with as a wise and advanced precaution against further criminal patronage. I should be very glad to have a short note of reply. Thank you in advance for the same, and believing in your sincerity, honesty, and loyalty, I remain respectfully yours, John F. Heiner, Pastor, Wesleyan Methodist Church, Guthrie Center, Iowa. I charge you, sir, with gross maleficence in office. I charge you with complicity, after the fact at least, in a foul, cowardly attempt to murder an American citizen. I charge you with alliance, unquestionable, and with papalism and its agents in America. I charge you with the violating of your oath of office to execute the laws of Iowa. I charge you with bringing discredit and dishonor on a commonwealth whose name, till you had discredited it, was synonymous with American civilization's highest and best effort. I charge you with submitting to foreign Roman-ruled organizations by hesitating to rebuke assault on American freedom of speech. I charge you with a grave unfitness to the high office of governor of the great state of Iowa, which will have no alliance, direct or indirect, with papalistic perversity. Iowa's manifest duty is to remove you, sir, by impeachment from the office your presence tarnishes and disgraces. I am, sir, very truly yours, Jeremiah J. Crowley. Wow. Whoa. The Roman scheme for the suppression of free speech embraces not alone incitements to murder, plots involving physical violence with destruction of life and property, and includes not only the muzzling of federal, state, and county officials, it lays criminal hand on the telegraph and postal equipments of an American civilization. Wow. On the morning of September 28, 1913, I received an important letter from Pittsburgh asking for immediate information of great value to the committee in charge of my proposed series of lectures in their city. Soon after I read the letter of the chairman of the lecture committee, Reverend Wilson G. Cole, I went personally to the main office of the Western Union Telegraph Company in Cincinnati and wrote a telegraph covering the main points in the letter of the committee, handing it to the receiving clerk in the presence of Mr. R.C. Bliss, manager of the Cincinnati office. I requested that it be stamped, rushed, and sent immediately to Pittsburgh. That message, duly prepaid and stamped rushed, was dispatched from the Cincinnati office, as the record shows, 6 minutes after my handing it in. It should have gotten to Pittsburgh early that same afternoon. The Pittsburgh committee awaited my telegraph anxiously, had to wait in vain. The telegraph was held back for 25 hours. The Reverend Wilson G. Cole, a prominent clergyman of the locality, is my authority for the statement that the message was, through someone's neglect, held up for 25 hours. Reverend Mr. Cole had, in fact, received a special delivery letter, which I had addressed to him 6 hours after sending the telegraph, before that telegraph was presented to him. Having from the special delivery letter obtained the information which should have reached him by wire the day before, Mr. Cole very properly refused to accept the belated telegram. Going to the head office of the Western Union in Cincinnati after I had heard of my telegram's holdup in Pittsburgh, I demanded an explanation. Mr. R.C. Bliss, the courteous manager of the Cincinnati office, wired the Pittsburgh manager, who refused him an answer. A second wire from Mr. Bliss to the Pittsburgh manager met with like fate. Mr. Bliss, in the temporary absence of Superintendent Miller, wired the Pittsburgh superintendent, Mr. A.C. Terry, no reply. Mr. Bliss then, in due course, placed the whole matter in the hands of Mr. I.N. Miller, the Cincinnati superintendent, who communicated with Terry in Pittsburgh. Terry's explanation was, however, of such a character that Mr. Miller sent it back to Pittsburgh for repairs without suffering me to see it. Arrived in Pittsburgh, I called attention in my first lecture, July 21st, 1913, to the detention of my telegraphic message. Holding up my book, Romanism, A Menace to the Nation, at page 67, I drew the attention of the vast and representative audience before me the photographic copy of a cablegram stolen from the files of the Western Union Telegraph Company in Chicago. I recalled to my audience the fact that this cablegram sent to Rome, June 6, 1901, addressed to Cardinal Ledowatsky, per fact of propaganda, had been, by a Romish agent, stolen soon after it had been filed with the Western Union and given to the Roman hierarchy. Oh, you got to go. I think it's got to go potty. Oh, dear. Okay, I'll be right back. Right back. Hold on, puppies. Let's see. I'm coming. You got to go potty? You guys got to go potty? Let's go potty. Yeah. Charlie, you gotta go potty? Charlie boy? Charlie buddy, you gotta go? Come on, buddy. Come on, don't you just sit there. What are you doing? What are you doing, Charlie? You're just crazy. Come on. Come on, Charlie. You big fatty. Fatty Charlie. Yeah, you better. Oh. Run. Good boy. Good boy. You can do it. Good boy. All right, Duke. I'm proud of you. Yeah. Good boy. Good boy. Oh, you go. Daisy, did you go, honey? Did you go? Good. Charlie, come on. Come on. Yeah, that's you, do. You did that. Good boy. Good boy. You can do it, Duke. You can do it. Good boy. I love you. Yeah. Come on, Daisy. Dakota. Come on, Coda. You want some, Dakota? Want a treat? Come on. You can do it, baby. Hold on. Hold on, guys. I think he's going to go potty or something. Come on. Come on, let's go see if we can find some more treats because I don't know. I gotta find you some. These are not real big treats, guys. I'm running out of treats. All right, hold on. What's right here? Right here, right here, right here, right here. Okay. There you go. All right. Woo. Lift that. Oops, sorry, honey. Who did that? Who did that? Oh my goodness. I'm not good with this going to the bathroom in the house, guys. Not okay with this. This is not okay. This is not okay. Nasty. We can't be doing that. Mm-mm. I don't even get that. All right, here we go.